What's going on, Macropod peeps? Man, I'm really looking forward to this episode today. We have an amazing guest, Jenna-Leigh Hoffmann, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in a second, but I'm going to introduce her as one of the greats and one of the cool people I met at the IHS, the Integrative Healthcare Symposium back in February. By the time that this podcast comes out, we've had a bunch of guests on from there as well, and Jenna-Leigh's one of those guests. We connected. It was just a great connection. I think we're hanging out with just around the same people and we were talking about the same things. We were very passionate about everything that was going on in that weekend and we just bonded, had lunches together. There was workouts and there was like running around cold New York. But Jenna-Leigh is, I think, a super eclectic guest today because we could take this honestly, we could take this conversation into multiple domains, and we will, but we definitely want to highlight Jenna-Leigh's background and in health, but also to her passion with her book she just recently came out with, and also really showcasing that. But Jenna-Leigh, would you mind just introducing yourself for our audience? What's gotten you excited lately about life? And yeah, let's just have a good conversation today.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna-Leigh Hoffmann. I am an integrative nutrition health coach, author, and also yoga instructor, leading different health and wellness events around the San Diego area and internationally. Really happy to be a part of the podcast. Oh, and something that's got me excited recently, I've been really honing my sailing skills. So I've been doing a lot of sailing on some large cruising catamarans. So that's been really getting me jazzed lately, being out in the water.
Ooh, that is awesome. And say I gotta come down to San Diego sometime and
Yeah.
bother you to show me the ropes on sailing for real.
Yeah.
But Jenna-Leigh just okay. By the way, guys, Jenna-Leigh is such a health like she's a beast. You just ran the LA Marathon, right?
Yeah, LA Marathon, was that last weekend? Yeah, last weekend. And then 6 weeks before that, did the Catalina Ultra Marathon. So definitely stack them. Do not recommend stacking two large endurance races, but it was fun. Good lessons learned.
Catalina back to LA. This freaking wild. How many miles was the ultra, and then how many miles? LA was 26, right?
Yeah, 26.2 for LA Marathon. And then the Catalina Ultra, there's a 50 miler and a 50K. And out of the 50K, so that translates to about 33, 34 miles.
Gosh, that's beast mode. That's beast mode. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw some of the photos from the LA Marathon. I think that was pretty wild. But let's talk about you being like in the health. What was it? Health nutrition, like a clinical nutrition coach, or what is that? What's that background specifically?
Yeah, so I studied at IIN, so I did integrative nutrition, functional health coaching. And then specifically, I focus on gut health, cognitive performance, and then immune balance. Those are my three specialties. Yeah,
Those are pretty. Those are some pretty big ones. You know,
pretty big.
when it comes to that, Marcos and I think everything kind of comes together from the gut health, the cognitive health, and the immune function. Obviously, with the immune health going there, what got you interested in this field, generally? Like, when people get into something, usually there has to be a story. Like, what was that story for you? Did you have, like, you're an athlete, obviously, but like, did you have times where you're like, man, this athletic endeavor, I'm getting hurt, so I need to figure out what I'm doing, or I'm underfueled, what's going on? Like, what was it for you?
Yeah. So, like you said, yeah, I've been doing endurance sports probably since I've been 12. I started with triathlons through my dad. And I think I'm just a human guinea pig. Like, I'm always experimenting with all the different sports, what nutrition kind of fuels my body, what makes me feel best. And I grew up with a father who's a neurologist and also a very big endurance athlete. So I feel like I got the best of both worlds. And then my mom is an emotional intelligence and executive health coach as well. So she and my dad have definitely been the backbone of kind of giving me that like perfect balance between the two. But I've always just been fascinated by the human body. I actually started as a pre-med student when I joined college, and then kind of found my way more to business, so marketing, international business, and then kind of found my way back to health because it was always a huge part of my life. I think especially being an athlete, you always want to figure out how you can level up, and it's not always about pushing your body harder. It's about what's fueling you, how the mind is affecting you, what's going on in the gut, what's in our food that could be, shifting us slightly towards something that could lead to an injury. So yeah, just a constant scientist. I feel like that kind of allows me to change my game and kind of be excited about life constantly.
Dope. All right. I feel like Seamus, you stuck in kinesiology or physical fitness the whole time, right?
Yeah, exercise science, that was it. But dang, Jenna-Leigh's got a mixed bag here. I was like, that is wild, bro.
International business specialist. Just didn't want to be a med student that bad. Okay. No, that sounds like my journey as well. I was like pre-med or biomedical engineering, and then I got a degree in math, and I use it all the time. But I mean, specifically as to what I do now, it's like people are always surprised when I tell them,
Yeah,
like, you were a math guy. It's like, yeah, I was.
definitely not
So,
my strong suit when it comes to math.
so let me ask you this: what made you decide to write this book?
Quite a few things. So I was trying to figure out if there was one turning point, but I think it was a culmination and a lot of self reflection that led to this book. So, previously to starting my own businesses, I was actually working at a top consulting and tech company in DC. So, I went from being a multi sport athlete, training 6 hours a day outside and in college and studying for my master's to going to a completely different environment. So, Florida to DC, and I was inside all day and wasn't training and just kind of felt this huge shift happening in my body. And I realized I was vitamin D deficient. So I wasn't getting outside enough, not getting that critical vitamin from the sun, and just generally not feeling like myself. So fast forward, COVID hit and ended up moving back to Florida to help out my family. And then I kind of just noticed these subtle little changes happening in my body and wondering why I was feeling a certain way. So I knew I needed to change my environment, and that's something that was affecting me. So I ended up moving to San Diego, and essentially everything just started falling into place. My athletic ability was super strong. My nutritional choices were seamless. I had so much more energy. I just kind of felt like I was beaming all the time. And I actually kept getting these compliments like, you're like sunshine or hello sunshine or anything like this, like your energy is just intoxicating. And I never felt like that in DC at all. So I essentially sat down at one of my favorite new little coffee shops in San Diego and did a whole self-reflection guide. And I realized I wrote the outline of my book and went through every little thing that had affected me and then dove deep into the science and wrote Becoming Sunshine. So that was about, 3 years of research, lots of stories, lots of interviews, lots of travel, and came to the conclusion that based on our human evolution and, how we've changed as a society, we're so overstimulated, we're so overwhelmed, and our body was actually built on sunshine. There's scientific evidence to do so. And so, understanding that we rely on the sun to survive and thrive, and that our biological processes, every single one, is intentionally crafted in accordance to the sun's energy. So, that was my theory. Perhaps because we're anatomically built on sunshine, we have the predisposition to become sunshine. So, that lightness in mood, energy, and just state of being. That was a long winded answer, but it was quite the journey. It's a constant journey to kind of get back to that state.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
started.
Let me ask you this though. Great question, by the way, Marcos. And great answer, generally. You never felt what you felt in San Diego when you grew up, ever?
No. I mean little glimpses.
Glimpses, yeah.
Yeah. And I think throughout my life I was so focused on achievement. So whether that was through academics or athletics or career goals, I don't think I really sat back and understood what was actually making me happy, but that sustainable happiness, that kind of lightness and authentic self. I think I was chasing a lot of other people's dreams instead of my own. So I feel
Yeah.
like San Diego is that culmination of like, who am I? Where am I supposed to be? And what is going to make me the healthiest, most optimized version of myself? And the answers came. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
And
think there's like something with San Diego's energy too, because Florida's a little bit more swamp like with like the heaviness of energy. And there's so much movement with the tectonic plates in San Diego. There's another theory there. So yeah, energy's moving.
San Diego ain't my vibe.
No? Where are you based, Marcus?
I'm in lost wages. You know what I mean? I need people to be losing money, and I need to smell regret and shame in the air in order to feel like it's home.
Yeah.
You need to have that post bar, post closing time feel.
I mean, I don't go in that's the energy of the other people, and then I can extract it from them and then not live that lifestyle. No, it's, again, I get it. Like, again, the climate, the environment, San Diego. I don't mean that it's probably not for me in particular ways. It's good for like unwinding, but I couldn't see myself in an environment that isn't a little more fast paced than that at times. And I do feel like, even though there is, a lot of different things there, just my brief time that I've been there, the couple times, right? Like it's a bit much. It's a bit much to be like that slow. Like, even slower is Carlsbad. I was like, damn, this is like a sleepy beach town, you know what I mean? And it's like, and it's great, but it's just like no one here has any worries, and it feels like no one has responsibilities. But like,
That
why
is,
get up? What was
yeah.
that?
I was like, that's true. You definitely feel that too. Everyone's walking around
Hey,
as a surfer at 12, and you're like, do you work?
generally,
Right?
he'd hate Ojai. Do you ever go to Ojai?
I've never been actually, but I've heard a lot of good things.
Ojai Valley is kind of like Ventura County, Camarillo, like it's another part, Marcos. You'd hate that too, because it's kind of like that vibe. Anything from Oxnard up, like it's like strawberry farms and beach kind of like lifestyle. It's a little bit different, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I just mean I probably wouldn't be productive. I probably would just assimilate into that culture, and then I'd be like, I'm literally just living out of a van. I feel like that would be. It's like, no, I can't be doing this at 30. I got kids. Again, so you talk about like societies, like, you know, the poor life design, right? Like what we
Mhm.
currently kind of live in. And, you're mentioning like the sun's rhythms and how it helps us like actually kind of like foster a more positive thing. And then you're also like, looking at the scientific evidence of vitamin D. So there's a lot of like ties here, but like,
Yeah.
how do you think our attachment, like from the sun's rhythm, our detachment from it plays into like broader societal issues?
Yeah. So the sun touches on so many different things in our society. And I think the biggest thing is the rhythm, which is kind of what my first obsession was. When you lose touch with the sun, so even physically seeing it and feeling it, the sun resets our circadian rhythm. So even if you are in a job that's hustle and bustle and it's at fast paced energy, just like you said, which is great, it's stimulating. I love that as well. If you don't see the sun when it rises and when it sets, you're kind of thrown off. So your sleep is going to be affected, your digestion, you're not getting those signals of like when you're actually awake versus when you're asleep. So the body doesn't get any of those cues of when to kind of turn on all those different biological functions that essentially make you your most optimized self. So I think that's the first thing. When you lose connection with the sun, you essentially lose connection with yourself and not understanding your body's intuitive intelligence. So that's the first thing. And then also with the society thing, I think the sun really reminds us to kind of like slow down and put life in perspective. It gives you that start and that ending and appreciation of life every single day. And I know you love the hustle and bustle, and I did too. And I think I still sometimes crave that energy from the environment and people. But sometimes when we move so fast, we lose perspective on what's actually important in life. And you see everyone rushing and doing things and getting attached to these overstimulation of like devices and doing something and connecting with people. And sometimes we do need to just disconnect and be in nature and have that time where we're so quiet and slow down and just be with our own thoughts. I feel like people forget who they actually are. And we need more people who are just truly themselves and not just carbon copies of people. So I feel like it kind of gives you those more subtle, deep reminders. I could go into all the science behind it of like,
Yeah.
it regulates your nutrition and your food and your mood and, all this stuff. But it's those deeper connections of like who we are.
No, it's so funny. You're not the first one to say that recently. We had someone on recently, and I think it was at the tail end of our podcast, and we said something along the lines of like, "What do you think about this?" And he's like, "I think the hustle culture is just so high up right now.
Yeah.
It's gotten to a point where people don't feel satisfied within themselves, and hustle culture might mean like waking up early, going to sleep late, and not seeing the sun, and just being behind a computer desk all
Yeah.
day, you know." And I think there comes moments where it's like, can you work hard and can you work smart and can you scale a business within normal sun hours? I think if you had good systems, if you had good,
Mhm.
skills, I think you could do it. But it was physiologically, it was reminding me about not seeing the sun. Maybe we can go into some details here about like some physiological lack of benefits or consequences if you don't see the sun. But it made me think about this one book I wrote, Jenna-Leigh, of prisoners in France that when they were sent to solitude or confinement, they would
Mhm.
not see the sun, and it had a 100% success rate of never becoming a criminal again, because they were in the dark and everything was flipped upside down with their food. Their food was never routine, so it was so
Mhm.
random. And then there were some other things that they did with them that like it just lacked so much rhythm that people were like, I will never go through that again. So like they never became a criminal. Like lack of light, lack of food consistency. They didn't have any human touch or human like interaction. It was just like, yeah, that'll
Yeah.
fix someone right up, huh?
Yeah. No, it seriously does. And, it's our cognitive ability, it's our emotional ability, our physical health. It's all related to our relationship with the sun, So it's all connected. So I would probably be in the same boat as those prisoners.
It's like me today. I feel like I'm a prisoner to my screen devices since 6:50 this morning.
Yeah. And that's why so many people too feel like seasonal affective disorder called SAD. And it's a reason we all feel sad and depressed during the winter because it's the lack of sunlight. We're not getting as much as we used to. So it's a real thing.
The benefit of being in Vegas, walk outside for a little bit. Generally not getting a lot of rain here. That's why I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving.
It's currently raining and cloudy here in San Diego.
Yeah,
See,
same
there
here
you
in
go.
LA.
You're getting a little bit of that sad, like you said. And
Yeah,
it's funny though,
exactly.
because my cousin lived in, what is it? Santa Cruz. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sounds about right. Yeah. For a hot minute. He's been in California like basically basically since like 8th grade, but he was in
Yeah.
Vegas up until that point, and then they all moved to Cali. And he's recently gone to Columbus, Ohio, which is it's a far different environment. And he was letting me know about kind of some of the affective disorder he's kind of was dealing with. And I'm like, you need more. I literally told him, I was like, you need a happy light, bro. And he's like, what the hell is that? And I was like, it's going to be the best thing you can get, especially if it's like dreary and overcast and you have this new environment and change of seasons. It's nice, but it does sound like it's affecting you. And to get like those extra lumens and just like put it on your face so that you can get that stimulation, you'll probably feel happier and better. Hell, like one of my mentors always was like, yeah, dude, you should get like one of these. Like it was like a Hatch light, but like before Hatch was the company to wake you up because it's like a more natural thing. It's not as abrupt and it's like light oriented and kind of can help
Hmm.
start your day and simulate that even if you are moving your circadian rhythm up. And it's like a bunch of things related to like light. And then shoot, James, we can go talk about all the different stuff we're doing with light, with photobiomodulation, with like neon. And there's
Yeah.
so many things that are like obviously very impactful as light with light as a whole. And it's like it's pretty crazy to think like what did the CEO cite? There was like 7,000 studies related to red light and how it could be health amplifying in certain ways. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, my red
nonetheless,
light is sitting on my kitchen right now. And especially when it's gray like this in the morning, I'll do that for about like 20 minutes in the morning and just have that red light on as much skin as possible.
Yeah, it's a good call. I love that. I love like because I went into so just a little bit like I went into a deep biohacking routine back in college because I was only getting like a few hours of sleep, and I was like, how can I
Yeah.
hack if the constraint is 4 to 6 hours of sleep, right? That's
Hmm.
just to say, how do I optimize my energy without increasing my sleep? One of the things that someone said was what Marcos said: have the light that would wake you up, the
Yeah.
alarm clock that like boom 30 minutes, and then just have like 10,000 lumens. So when I would study, I would have like 10,000 lumen lights, and I would just be like
Mhm.
locked.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was in a sunroom or something like that. But it was the best because I just I had these constraints and I was just like, how can I make my environment so potentially like peak? And it was just small little things. It was like what $7 for a light, but like I'm locked in, like it's like the best investment.
No, seriously. I mean, my friend was just traveling to South Africa right now for a big race. And she's like, okay, how do I make sure that I maintain my circadian rhythm, so I don't get jet lag before this big race? And it's all about like the light and then the blue, blue blocking and timing all of that so you kind of stay on that same rhythm.
Yeah.
And of course, you can, hack it to the best of your ability for sure. But I think if we can like combine the natural and start there, and then if we can't always get that because, life can't always be consistent, and then you start to supplement with like the red light.
Yeah, yeah. Now that's what I was gonna ask next. Maybe Marcos was too, but like, so what are the key foundations you found for making that rhythm work? But then, like, what were some of those like, what were like in your research of like the over 3 years? Like, what did you find were like, oh, that's a weird study, a case study, or like that's a weird way to make it work, or like different tips or things like that?
Yeah. I think probably the first thing that I found most fascinating, just to kind of close the loop on the red light, is do you guys know what red light was mimicked after? Why red light? Why that spectrum of light?
Sun.
Sunrise and sunset, specifically 30 minutes after sunrise and 30 minutes before sunset. So that
Mm,
particular light is what resets your circadian rhythm. And that is what red light is. And that's why everyone needs it and wants it. So anyway, great for skin, great for sleep, great for all the above. But I feel like that made me, first of all, really happy because when I first moved to San Diego, I was like, I'm never missing a sunset. I've missed way too many, working in the federal buildings of DC. And so I was wondering why I was like so drawn to it, why I was really elevating my mood. And it was there, the science.
yeah.
But
Mm.
yeah, I
There's
think,
something about like looking at a sunset and you're like,
yeah.
I've actually been craving this. Sorry, like, sorry to interject, but like, I've been like, this wedding planning. I was telling Marcos, I was like, this wedding planning is like getting a little tough. I was like, I just need a day, not even a day. I just need like an hour. I'm just gonna drive out to the beach and just look at the sun and just sit. I know because
Yeah.
I'm so attuned to my rhythm that like the other day I went out to this cactus garden right behind me. I was just there for 10 minutes, got some sun. First off, I noticed how pale I was. I was like, geez. But after 10 minutes, I think they call it what in Japan they did a ton of studies on depression and mood about this, but it's called nature
Mm,
bathing or earth bathing or whatever. And I was like, I'm
for
I'm recharged. I'm ready to go. And I know the same thing happens for me when I see the beach. Like I as soon as I get to the beach, like, I don't care what problems are happening in my life. They are all gone.
yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, just looking at a natural landscape. I think there's even a study of looking at like a painting of a nature scape. Also has similar effects to the brain because it kind of takes you back to that very like calming and that connectivity with nature that we've had with humans or that we've had as humans to the very early days. So it is that calming, it produces that serotonin, that dopamine, it's that beautiful like cocktail of chemicals that happens in your brain. So yeah. But to back to your question, I mean, I can tell you a bunch of stats that I was shocked that like 42% of Americans were vitamin D deficient. I mean, that's a huge thing. That's why there's a big decline in mental health. And that's a huge connection to our disconnection from nature, the speed, the reliance on, social media. I realized that 80% of people didn't exercise enough to be healthy. 80% of Americans. And then 1 in 3 were sleep deprived. And the coolest thing was that I found every little thing was connected: your sleep, your movement, your energy, your emotional resilience, your sense of happiness and fulfillment, the ability to connect with others, your choices in nutrition and fueling your body. There's all these really multidisciplinary connections, which were fascinating to me. And I think it just made me realize that even some of the research that you and I were learning about, Seamus, at IHS, was that as a healthcare facility and healthcare nation, like we're focused on treating just the brain or just the heart or just the foot. And we realize that every little thing is so connected. So like the Eastern and Western medicine starts to blend. And I think the same thing I saw in my research is that we can't just solve one thing and segment everything else of our lives. Everything is connected. So I think that
Yeah.
was probably
Mm.
the biggest, I think, something that like I always felt, but the research and the interviews really validated that.
I think what you're describing here is kind of the word I've been using a lot here lately. And it was actually a client that brought it up. She's like, I'll be damned if I can't find the right synergy between enough movement, enough exercise, and eating the right stuff. It's like it's like one of those dampers. You pick two of them, the other one goes off. And it's like
Yeah.
you're always
Yeah.
battling those things. But at the same time, like in a world of social media and screen influence and all these things that go on, I
Mm.
think for so many people, like we're constantly stepping over dollars to pick up pennies on shit.
Yeah.
Literally, like again, Seamus is saying, if I get a 10-minute sun exposure, plus the 10 minutes of movement outside, my mood is completely reset and I feel good. What if I got a little, so do this as a deep think kind of thing here.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to craft maybe like a list of the top 10 things that we would view like that integrates just everything that we know about health and wellness at this point, what is this list going to look like? Because I think Seamus and I have done this independently. We haven't done it with like a guest, and obviously you have another background with like fitness and wellness outside of like this as well. So I think this would be a fun exercise. So we'll let you go first. I think we can all contribute at least 3, and then we can go from there.
So the top 10 things, just to reiterate, that lead to a healthy life.
Optimized health, right? Because isn't that the whole point of that IHS anyways?
Optimized health. Yeah. That's the goal. The goal in life. So obviously for optimized health, I think you have to have, obvious, sun every single day if possible. Whether or not you can see it outside, even if it's a cloudy day, you're still getting that lux. So that would be one of my first things.
How long?
I think at least 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening if I could. If not, 10 and 10, anything is something. So I think that's really important, being outside. The second thing is, is this based on importance or just free for all?
No, we don't. Maybe I'll write them down.
It'll integrate all 10. It's not like
Yeah.
least to highest. It's just all together.
Okay. The second thing would definitely be around food. So eating food that is both whole and as locally sourced as possible. Obviously, easier said than done. And food that makes you specifically feel the best, because every single body is different. So there's obviously no prescription per person. So I think that's really important, having those whole healthy foods, eat the rainbow. And then third, to start with 3, movement. I love to say that we are born to run, but obviously I have a soft spot in my heart for running. But yeah, definitely like having movement any type of day. If you can move outside, that's even better. You're getting that grounded, that connectedness to nature. And that obviously leads to proper sleep. And I feel like maybe I'll add on my 4th before we open up to the 10.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I
Those are
think
pretty
sleep
good.
is like maybe even is probably number 1, because it regulates everything else and can throw you off immediately.
Yeah. Marcos, let me go first because mine's probably gonna
You're gonna make it harder for me. Okay.
Are
I
we each doing
appreciate it.
3?
I'm gonna do it. I think one outside of that is like purpose and meaning. Having a life that you are moving towards something in what and any
Mhm.
stage of your life. Like I know that working with folks that are more advanced in their age, but still having something to go for, whether that be, making sure that they can be there with their grandkids or really driving a business to have a legacy, whatever it is to give back, I think is good. 2 is community. I think that's something I've been really thinking about is like building a community of people that
Yeah.
are, not only just in agreement with you that help you sustain some of your happiness, but also challenge, people that challenge you to look at different views and different things. So I think that's great. And then I was going to say stress, but I was going to say what can help stress would be maybe a little bit of sex, but it's like a joke. But stress management, which can be found in different ways, like I was saying, joking through sex. But that's for me, Marcos.
I know
All
it's
right.
hard to choose, but I definitely agree with you on the community. I feel like that almost like trumps it all.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it has to be like maybe a top 10. So far, sun for ideally 30 minutes morning and night, but at least 10 would be a good place to start. Whole foods that are ideally locally sourced. 3, movement. And you even said caveat like asterisk run. I do think, yes, humans are born to run. We're exceptional at it. It's actually like our greatest quality according to like physical attribute, right? Seamus coming in with like, you must be reading a lot of stoicism here lately, because these are all like very stoic philosophies again. Purpose and meaning, community, and stress management, which not surprised. And then I have to come up with the next 3 where I love all these things initially. 7, we didn't even talk about like actual like resistance training and exercise. So I'm gonna throw that in there. Like you got to do it. And you have to figure out like a consistent number of days that you can realistically bite off and chew.
Is that also just like resistance training, but for like muscle mass, like specifically to stave off sarcopenia and joint stuff, right?
Yeah, man, we're gonna
Bone
attack
density.
bone density and
Yeah.
muscle, and also all the other cascading things that happen as a result of having not enough of it. Like
Mm.
again, we could talk about all those particular things that become easier to maintain and like keep your brain feeling better because your body clears sugar better. Like we all know the benefits of that. And we talk about that extensively on the pod. So
Mm.
number 8, though, this becomes a lot harder. You know what's funny? Like, this is still part of community, but I'm going to say, like, get coached. Get coached in the things that matter to you,
Mm.
whether it's like business,
Like
finances.
mentor. Yeah.
You need to be a mentee of somebody else. And you all like it's like who there's a school that's like for Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Seamus, that they have like you have your mentor, you have people that are on your playing field, and the people that are your mentoring, right? And I forget what
Mm.
it's called to have those tiers, but I think that like it's like that whole
Oh yeah, I
ecosystem,
know you're talking about.
right?
Mhm.
Like I think that that's super important because it does give you purpose and meaning. It has the element of community, but like you have to like go and be passionate about that thing in that kind of coaching application. It's like, why were you guys both at IH?
Jenna-Leigh, you want to go first?
That's a question.
Yeah, like why were you there?
That's philosophical. Honestly, I felt like I wanted to deep dive into my learning again, and I wanted to be around people who were as passionate about it and kind of shake up my perspective. And the thing that I got the most out of it was the community and the connections, and even learning alongside somebody. I think it was brilliant. And just seeing people like in person in front of you being so stoked on what they're researching, what they're sharing to the world. And I think like connecting on what we're all researching by our side, by ourselves in our silos, like, and then seeing that on the playing field on the stage, like it was brilliant. So I feel like it just gave me that energy, and I feel like finding energy from others is really special these days instead of just being drained all the time.
So that
So
was
yeah,
for you like that middle part of what I described there, right? You really wanted people to
exactly.
be at the same level of interest. Were you a speaker there as well?
No, I was not a speaker, but maybe next year.
Okay. Do you aspire to speak at some point?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
And then
Yeah.
Seamus, you had the pleasure of speaking, even though you
Yeah.
got left behind in the dust from the 2 physicians that were supposed to be there with you
Hey,
initially.
but I crushed that speech. And everyone liked it. And I think they're going to invite me back in. And I'm actually going to do my own type of speech that's going to embrace a lot of these concepts because in a year from now, the moral landscape of healthcare is going to change. So I definitely
Hmm.
want to speak upon that with artificial intelligence and these things. So yeah, I'll definitely speak on it some more. But I definitely agree with Jenna-Leigh, like about hey, you're learning from people, you're bringing it back, and you're kind of learning it with others and just kind of talking, and you're teaching other people about yourself too, because they might not specialize in what you're on about. They might just be there are a ton of people there just talking about my speech that were like nodding their heads and going like, "Holy cow! I've never thought about this." Like, we're out of the 50 speakers there. Everyone was at some point talking about mitochondria, your biomarkers, Alzheimer's. Boom. I mean, I think some of these hard science things are what we're pretty privy to, Marco. So it's like in our
Mm.
nomenclature day to day. But when I dropped the anvil on ethics and artificial intelligence and the
Yeah.
onset of the ethical landscape of like, the morality of like what it means to be a healthcare worker, everyone was like, oh shoot, like, like it wasn't as sexy. It was like, it was just different. And I think people just realize like there's something else here, and
Mm.
what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. Lawsuits, people's data, breaches, big amounts of money. Things are going to be happening, and I felt like that was important to speak about, and I like people didn't know that was happening in their work.
Yeah. It's the things that we don't get taught in school or med school or functional health training. It's not. It's what you find out on the job, and it can kind of rattle your whole perspective of the healthcare system too. So,
Yeah.
That was
yeah,
literally
I
us
think you're
yesterday. That was
brilliant.
literally me yesterday with the ethical question of our guest yesterday was doing
Give me that.
pharmacogenetics, right? And then she
Yeah.
talked about the ethical boundaries as a parent to run particular tests on your kids, and then when or not they would be able to have like an adult onset type of condition potential, and what that looks like. I was like, damn, that really got me thinking. It's like, yeah, like it's not something that I could really figure out because I only really get them till 18, right? Like to like help make
Yeah.
decisions with them, for them, yada yada. But then after that, it's like, well, maybe they didn't want to know that they had X genetic marker, but we wanted to know so we could help stave it off because we're parents and we care about our kids. So it was just like this whole thing. I'm like, that's a toughie. I would not want to be in that room of like whoever just, gets to figure that out. But I'm
Ignorance
struggling with
is
my third one.
kind of argument,
Oh yeah. I'm struggling with my third one because I feel like with 8 of them, we're covering a lot of ground, in here. And third thing, could you guys go first? And you try to make this so difficult and then figuring out 10.
I kind of gave 4. I threw in sleep there too. So I think you're at 9. You just have one more.
Yeah, you did sleep. I forget about sleep. You don't need that. That's useless.
Okay, we'll fight about that for sure.
I'm kidding. Put it this way. I value sleep so much that like we've had a couple nights where my kids won't sleep and I'm like, all right, we're going back into the split rooms again. One sleeps with this one sleeps with that one. And then we'll figure out when, we get past this next sleep regression with my daughter. So literally I'm like, I value getting my hours versus like dealing with like the where we're sleeping situation for a few weeks. But 10. All right, cool. So you threw in sleep. I'm not coming up with the last one. I only contributed 2. It's okay. I'm taking sleep. I stole it from you, Jenna-Leigh.
Okay.
But the last thing there, like what would it be? It's outdoor sun exposure, whole foods that are locally sourced ideally, or just whole foods in general, movement, purpose and meaning, community, stress management, resistance training, again, being coached / coach somebody else, sleep, and then 10.
Dude, that's a good
And
one.
I can add some.
Add in,
Yeah,
Jenna-Leigh.
what do you think?
I mean, I'm kind of stealing my own ideas from my book.
Please,
So I feel like
that's
these
the whole
align
point.
well with my chapters. But there's 2 chapters that I really like dove into deeper at the end. And I realized they almost like held a bigger weight than some of the more science-based ones that we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But one is like emotional intelligence. And I know that was like thrown around a lot, but it's understanding and having like self, social, and situational awareness all the time. And being so in tune with your emotions of like what is you versus what you're experiencing. I feel like that also leads into like the community piece.
Yeah.
That's like community and purpose and meaning kind of tied together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of exposure, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But like really understanding yourself well and how you're reacting and how you can constantly grow and then use that to better understand another person. It just continues to deepen the other 2. And then my second one that I'll throw into is the ability to be creative and understand like what creativity means for you. Because so many of us, especially as adults and us that are like taking on responsibilities and trying to optimize ourselves, sometimes we just need to be freaking creative and pick up a paintbrush and make an ugly painting or roll around in the sand and be childlike and allow that childlike wonder to flourish. You know?
I freaking love that. I think that will be the exclamation point on number 10. Be creative. Okay. I love that. Here's why. I mean, the emotional intelligence stuff. I mean, I've been working on that a lot. I tell Marcos all the time. I'm like, am I just wearing like a mask or am I wearing like a personality right now that I'm just like because of my physiology or like just getting irritated because I didn't eat or whatever. Yeah. Like it's that self-awareness is something I constantly struggle with and then also try to with the other person that I'm working with in that moment be really, great with. But I think the creative one is something I've been struggling with too for a long time. Because this passion project with the podcast is sort of creative, right? It's sort of creative. It does help with that, but it's not the creative of like what we call, it's kind of like when you were a child, when you had those undisclosed hours or like unregulated hours, like or like whatever it is, like a blank space. I forget the name of it, but it's just like hours that like aren't planned, unplanned hours, right? And you just played and you just did your thing, and I was like, dude, I don't know the last time I've literally had time on my calendar where there was.
You're not supposed to plan it, dude. It's just.
I know. I'm sorry. But I don't know the last time. I don't know the last time when there was like on these closed hours where there was just like creativity and all this. Yeah. I was listening to Rick Rubin recently, and he's like, that needs to be practiced more because it's not about this optimization thing. This whole thing with the optimization and trying to get better and constantly do things, that comes from a place of rules and limitations. Yeah. Right? So it comes from a place of like following protocols. Creativity is supposed to be going inward and not following those and following what is best to you. And it's been a long time. I've been aching for it because so generally my grandma, she used to work for Pixar and Disney.
Oh my
She did
gosh.
all the movies that you probably watched growing up: Lilo and Stitch, Lion King, Atlantis. I
Wow.
watched those movies as
All
a
the
kid.
favorites.
All
Yeah.
some of my favorites, and I wanted to be an architect because of her because I used to do a lot of art. And I've been watching like more stuff and like saw the trailer for Lilo and Stitch, the new one, and I was like thinking about my grandma. I'm like, I want to paint. I want
Yeah.
to draw. I was really passionate about it one time,
Mhm.
and I'm like, so this whole creative thing is like hitting heartstrings right now. Okay, Julian, I didn't know I was gonna cry today and talk about my grandma. All right.
Oh, no.
Well,
He's gonna
here's the
Bob
deal.
Ross it. He's gonna
I
Bob
love
Ross.
it. We're doing a little painting. So my batch weekend is next weekend. We're gonna be in Temecula, so somewhere sunny. Um, we're doing a painting, a speed round between me and my fiance, where we have to paint each other, and we have like 5 to 10 minutes to paint each other on like an easel, you know. So I'm about to bust out my skills. She thinks she's the better artist. I'm like, girl, you don't know. You don't know.
So funny, because how did we forget about something that's so joyous and great? It made me literally think about, I read this book when we kind of first started podcasting a couple years ago. And this page here, right there. All right. Can you see that all right? The
Yeah, I
plate.
can see that.
Is it
Okay.
backwards? Is it inverted or is it just mine? Son of a
We
gun.
hear you though, generally.
Yeah.
We'll
All
wait
right.
for.
So it has, I'm just throwing that there for everybody else, right? But as this idea, you can hear me, just couldn't see it. So the play model, right? So you have things that are fun and things that are challenging. And then it's like the behavior, because you're talking about like emotional intelligence, right? And then when I saw this, it's like kind of like, one of those graphs where you have like the things that are low fun or high fun, or it's easy or hard, right? And then it was like things that are challenging yet fun is like things you probably enjoy with, like, it's like a marathon for you, right? Like it's something that you honestly enjoy, but it's hard. Like I have no intent on ever running an ultra. Forget that. Right. And that's like what helps you live a bit more. It's like, but your idea of fun, right? And play. And then pleasing, it's like high fun, but it's easy. So like what are some pleasing things that we all do here that's just like easy and fun?
Ooh,
Oh,
a little bit of a lag.
we lost her. It's all good. Let's just
We'll keep rolling.
yeah, we'll keep rolling. She'll come back.
What was that? What is that book, Marcos?
This one's The Fun Habit. Give it a read, bro.
I will.
Yeah.
I need that in my life, as you can tell.
As you're planning the wedding.
I know, dude. I'm so like tight right now, dude. Like everything's just like everything about stress is like happening, and but then also at the same time, I've been thinking about life. Like that's why I've been thinking about the beach because I'm like, I need more of that, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny. In our entire version here that we're
Generally, we're back.
utilizing, and yeah, she's
Back.
my internet. Don't
I
worry.
think it's the rain.
We filled the gap for you. Seamus
Don't
is
worry. We were
having an
just talking about
existential
the
moment.
book. We
Don't
were
worry,
talking
he's
about the
crying to
book.
me. We're having
I
a therapy
followed you
session.
and it just kicked me out, so I don't know what happened.
I think it was just the internet with the rain. But we were talking about Marcos. What was your question? What are the things that bring you some?
Yeah, what are things that are high fun that are easy on the challenging front for you?
For
Right?
me,
For you, yeah.
high fun. I don't know. I mean,
Like,
I love to paint.
okay.
To my right is my easel and my painting stuff. So I feel like that's when I get in like a really deep flow state is when I drop into like painting and I love it. And I feel like that's yeah, I mean I have all my supplies, so it's like pretty high reward, pretty easy, unless I'm doing something really complex. But I don't know, maybe just like frolicking through a field and like laughing and maybe playing some Twister. I don't know, something that's yeah, just like easy. What do you think on that?
Easy. All right.
Yo, man,
Swinging?
that's
I
not
love
fun.
to swing. That's fun.
Well, I think right before you cut out, so this is like what I was trying to show. Just
Okay, now I can see. Yeah.
the model behind this individual's like book, The Fun Habit, he talks about the
Oh,
play model, PLAY. And each one of these categories is like one that's pleasing, that's the one that's easy and high fun, right? And then there's living, which is like your challenges in life, right? That they're hard and they're fun. So it's like I was saying for you, it's your running, which again, I wouldn't want to do that. That's too challenging. But people will
yeah,
look at me and like the lifting or the CrossFit and be like, no, hell no, I don't want to do that. That's too hard. But to me, it's hard
yeah,
and fun, right? Agonizing is hard and no fun, which is sometimes work. I feel like it's not, but there's moments where it's like writing soap notes, like it's agonizing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, those are rough, man.
Low fun, and it could be hard because you're trying to like hit all the points that you talked about. And then
Yeah.
there's the yielding, which is easy, but not necessarily a lot of fun, which might be like that
Mm.
relaxation moment. So you guys all kind of sparked this, like, oh shit, I remember, like, I literally read a book on like play and like doing more things that related to that, but it's been so long since I've like tapped into that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in this book, because most of the time I like listen and read, this is the one that took me a while to actually read because there was no audiobook, because I like got it from a whatever on a flight. I was like about to buy it to go on a plane. He talked about this idea of fun and this idea of everybody. I'm pretty sure it was in this one. At some point, like there was a choose your own adventure portion to this book, right? He
Mhm.
talked about this other book that a lot of people got frustrated with because it's like, this book was supposed to be fun. I'm choosing my own adventure, but no one ever got the Shangri-La or whatever like the golden end was, right? And it's because the book would have you hop around from place to place, right? So people were having fun, they're choosing their adventure, but the only way to ever get into actually getting that last little bit, or like getting to that place of like the utopia, was to read the book straight through, which made no
Mm.
sense. Like, but like to the author, that was a lot of fun to like twist people around and do that. And I was like, what a crazy, what creative concept. Like, I'm going to make a book that you can never get to it unless you do it how a book is normally supposed to be read. Trip. So I took
That's
our
great.
list, guys, and I plugged it into an AI model just so it would rank us. I wanted to see what artificial intelligence would tell us. It said we crushed it. It gave us a 10 out of 10 gold stars.
Sweet.
No, it did say one thing though. The one thing that it said the potential gap is hydration and water. How do we miss that?
Mm.
And he's like, but it could fit under Whole Foods, quote unquote,
Yeah.
or is it an 11th item? You know,
Nah, just put it at the Whole Foods.
True.
and there, it talked about a couple other things here. Like it put parentheses around some of the stuff. Like again, with like the Whole Foods, it was like seasonal and nutrient rich, right? Parentheses.
Mhm.
Daily movement, it's like ideally outdoors, right? And I think we'd all agree there. The community thing was like connection in nature, right? Like, because if you're actually doing something in a community sense, you're getting out there and actually doing it. Stretch, the mentorship and being coached, like that element was like good. The resistance training, again, there's another thing of being able to do it outside. The sleep component of that, like having those different cycles of light on the creativity side, or something that's fun and playful, is like inspired by nature. A lot of the things that we're talking about that are inspiring, like you just said, it's like, got my easel out there so I can paint something, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like our list. I think this is great, and I think that if more people focused on all these things being a part of their like health and wellness routine,
Yeah.
like it's hard to go into the weeds of these things, so they're all pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. And I think they're all simple in theory and sometimes complex in integration into your life. And I feel like that's sometimes where people do get overwhelmed in an already overwhelming, society. So I think that's something like to slowly start which ones are easier for you to control and integrate. And then maybe the ones that are maybe seem more difficult or daunting, maybe you slowly do some learning to understand, how you can do that. Because I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of my clients that I've worked with, they're like, oh, how do I do all of this stuff and work? And, it just becomes more stressful. Like you were saying, Seamus, managing stress. And then, maybe we missed one that was rest and recovery, which is a big thing that I feel like a lot of us need as
Yeah,
part
I
of
think it was like stress and like stress management. I think that kind
yeah,
of falls into it as well.
but
But
not
yeah, no,
list.
let me ask you this, because we're coming up on a good hour here. I know we've talked about your book extensively and these principles, all this stuff. Are there any other key insights you found from your book in the years of research that you were like, wow, that is so profound yet so approachable, so simple, or like I don't even know I could think about that. Was there anything else that, in your research that you're like, man, what the heck?
Yeah. I think probably I had a lot of case studies that were incredible just to kind of see the impact that, understanding and optimizing your life and then also integrating the sun had on people's lives. But probably the biggest one that really touched my heart was one of my cousins, actually. She had rheumatoid arthritis and she was 9 years old and had to spend, 4 weeks in the hospital couldn't move every single year, had to do all these different like crazy drugs like steroids to reduce the inflammation, and it essentially affected her entire life and her ability to live fully. And at one point in her life she said, you know, this is ridiculous, I can't live like this. And she spent some time with my family in Florida and noticed how some of the symptoms started to slowly dissipate. Fast forward, she ended up moving from Munich, Germany, where she was born and raised, moved to Barcelona, was in the sun, spent a lot of time in the ocean, started to integrate, you know, low impact movement, changed her diet. But the biggest thing was she was in the sun constantly, and it essentially healed her. And so she has no more crazy medication. She has no more rheumatoid arthritis flare ups. She was also told that she could never have a baby because of the drugs and the toll that all of those things took on her body. And she just had her son this past summer. So I feel like that is probably the most beautiful stories, obviously, because it's near and dear to my heart. But just the impact of changing your environment, and that if you aren't happy with how you're feeling and how you're living, your whole life is one decision away. Maybe that's a move to a new place, you know, but yeah, so that's probably one of my most favorite stories. I'm a little biased, obviously, from the book, but yeah, just the power of the sun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the body's very resilient. And I
Yeah.
feel as though individuals that get, I mean, it goes one, it's a coin flip on what you're going to do with the result of some sort of a diagnosis in life. And it's either going to go prove them wrong that you can fix it with other means, or you're just going to succumb to the fact that this is your life. So it's
Yeah.
beautiful that people can go seek that and find more things that they truly can learn from. And again, maybe this is someone that hears this and says like, you know, these guys were right. Maybe I should just like get out more and
Yeah.
just enjoy it. And shoot, I, like you just said, the distractions and all the stuff that is evidently getting, you know, sucking in more and more of your time on a daily basis. Your phone tells you every week how many hours you've been on it per night, per
Yeah.
day. You know, that number is like staggering to me at times. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, Jesus, like, what the hell am I doing? But you know, like you just said, this person's able to heal themselves in a way that's maybe unexplainable by conventional science. It's almost
Exactly.
as great as the miracles that happen with the individuals that make that journey to whatever holy spot it is that like is like famous for like curing miracle, like the curing like literally incurable
Technically
diseases.
defined as a miracle under like medical examiners,
Pretenses.
like they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's true. And I feel like so many people just believe that they're born with what they have, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm just not a happy person, or like, I'm not predisposed to do that. And, you know, similar to like what we learned, Seamus, like, you know, your genetic code kind of influences so much, but then also you have the power to influence it in your environment. So I think the biggest thing too, like with, you know, becoming sunshine, yeah, it's a corny phrase. And when you first read the title, you're like, okay, what is the science behind this? But we're actually predisposed to have that sunshine disposition because we're anatomically built on sunshine. And sunshine does make you happier, it does make you lighter, it does make you more balanced, it elevates your mood. And, you know, only 30% of our genetic code is influenced by that quote unquote like happiness gene. So you have the power to change your life. And I feel like that's kind of what I tried to do in this book, and I have it right here. But, you know, here's my little book. Here's a little cover. So, you know, you have the power to change your life, and here's the science, here's some stories to inspire you, but most importantly, there's questions at every little chapter to help you finally like fine tune your life slowly and surely to figure out what's best for you. Yeah.
Mic drop. All right, let's wrap this up, guys. That was perfect. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, where else can they find you? Is it a website? Is it socials? Let's plug that really quick and then get out of here, because that was like beautiful way to wrap it all and tie it together. Put a bow on the bitch.
I love chatting with you guys. Yeah, Jenna-Leigh That's where you can find all of my integrative health coaching programs. Book is on my website as well as Amazon. So Becoming Sunshine, Fine Tune Your Health and Happiness, Harnessing Key Lessons from the Sun. And then, yeah, socials, also Jenna-Leigh Hoffmann. It's a long name, but that's me.
Easy. Well, we'll have it linked up, good to go. People can find in the comments, or sorry, well, rather the caption, what the description. Jesus Christ, the description. Yeah, Where all the words go that, AI helps generate a little bit easier now. We'll have the link to the website and then the socials there as well. But people like to hear it too because they're either listening, watching, whatever. And yeah, again, thank you so much for your time and being, again, like that ray of sunshine today and like really brightening our days and giving us, the additional things to think about. And in between now and our next podcast, I'm going to go get some sunlight because you inspired me.
Yeah, do it. You're
Guys,
lucky I don't have any.
well, again,
Jenna-Leigh, thank you
that's
so
why I
much.
live in the desert, so I can make sure there's always sun there. So
Yeah, true. Smart man.
yeah, yeah. Thank you again, Jenna. Jenna-Leigh. Sorry, I didn't want to shorten your
All
name there.
good.
My bad. Seamus, man, this was great. Thanks for connecting with her and all the IHS people. Hopefully we can continue to bring more and more of them on. Cough. That's where Seamus did plug so many of them and has so many coming. I'm glad there's a wide array of people that were at that symposium because
Yeah.
obviously it could be a little bit dense with a lot of the different things in health, but to also talk about ways of taking back your health in such a very holistic way is awesome. So until next time, everybody, glad you were listening. We would love more support. So if you can give us a follow on whichever listening platform of your choice, we'd love a subscribe on the YouTube page though, so we can boost that up and reach more people and continue to have better and better guests like our individual here today. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks, guys.